There are certain habits that the best dribblers or really good dribblers you see have developed. Whether they've developed these consciously or just unconsciously through playing a lot, they have a lot of these habits in place. And today I'm going to be giving you what these 5 dribbling habits are that you need if you want to become someone who is just mastering dribbling, skill moves, being able to beat opponents one-on-one, being able to exploit space with this really crucial skill. So that's what we're going to be going over coming up next. So let's jump right into it, starting in reverse order with number 5. And this is using the outside of your foot to dribble, or the top of your foot to dribble at speed and in control. Now that doesn't mean you won't push the ball ahead with the inside sometimes and use that in different situations, but try dribbling in control at speed with the inside of your feet. It's not something that's really effective. And this is a very basic component, basic skill to learn, but for those of you who are kind of at that level with your dribbling and you're just trying to learn, how like the basic fundamentals of how to dribble better, the habits to develop, you want to be using the outside of your foot. And if you watch the best dribblers, they use that way more often than the inside. Again, I'm not talking about when they're cutting and chopping and all this. I'm talking about when they're running with the ball for the most part. Again, you'll still see them use the inside sometimes, but especially when you're dribbling in speed, in control, you're typically using the outside. So work on this specifically often, and you can also use the top of your foot. In fact, in the comments, if it resonates with you, put "I am mastering my dribbling in football" to really align with that, and then get out there and work on these things. Now let's move on to number 4. And number 4 is learning how to accelerate and decelerate strategically. If you notice a lot of dribblers, especially ones who don't use crazy skill moves and all this different stuff, and even ones that do, because Neymar does this too, is they use acceleration and deceleration to their advantage. And essentially this means they know when to speed up or to use their speed to push past an opponent or push into space, and they know when to slow down and slow the dribbling down, maybe isolate an opponent or pass the ball off. And it's crucial you get really good at this, knowing when to accelerate when you're dribbling and when to decelerate. A player that I love, or he's retired now, but I love to watch, who was so amazing at this, was Kaká in his prime. And I even have a video breaking down his dribbling technique that I'll leave in the description if you want to watch it. But it's a great example of seeing someone who knew when to accelerate, knew when to slow it down, just knew really, what to do in each situation. And learning this is just going to make you a better dribbler. If you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you hit that like button. Now let's move on to number 3. And number 3, I just called Dribbling IQ, and the last one kind of is in there as well, but we're going to specifically talk about how far or how close to keep the ball. Now, this will also tie in with acceleration, deceleration, but it's knowing when to keep the ball close and take kind of small little touches, and when to push the ball out ahead. Sometimes there's going to be space to exploit, and you want to push the ball out further so you can stride onto it, but other times if you do that, you're going to lose the ball. And this comes down to practice and just learning kind of yourself and how fast you can get to a ball, being able to keep the ball close so that you can protect it. So if someone dives in or tries to take it, you can take it away from them. Like if you look at the way Messi dribbles, he dribbles with it in really close control, really close to his body with little tiny touches. And that's because if anyone tries to come in and take the ball, he quickly can chop it, cut it, and take it away. And you want to get good at both of these techniques, being able to push it out and knowing when to do that and when to keep it close. Of course, keeping it close when you're in tighter situations is usually the way to go, but when you have space to exploit, again, Kaká did this brilliantly, you want to push it out. Number 2 is you want to have skill moves that you can use at speed. Now, you can also use skill moves to get yourself going. For example, you could take little touches, then do a step over, and then accelerate into space. But I'm talking about things you can do in stride. This is things like basically pushing it into space, doing little cuts and feints, Ronaldo chops, and things of this nature that allow you to beat a defender, with these little cuts, chops, and feints. Because you're not going to be doing elasticos, you're not going to be doing skill moves of that nature. They're for different situations. But there are certain moves you can do in stride while still kind of going at a pretty fast pace in order to really burn a defender, to change direction, and do all of these different things. Some that I would recommend especially is the body feint. Just kind of a little feint or a swivel is going to go a long way to beating defenders. Little cuts and chops, just being able to quickly push it into space and seeing where the defender's momentum is to see if you can take advantage of that are really good ones as well. Things like the Ronaldo chop are great for changing direction, especially if a defender's kind of following you and they're just not going to be able to get the ball if you chop it well because of their momentum. So you want to learn some of these skill moves, and you'll see professionals at the highest level use these moves all of the time. And number one is, how long should you dribble? And this is an interesting one because I think a lot of times we talk about over dribbling, and you especially don't want to over dribble. Like you're trying to take on 3 or 4 people every single time and you keep losing the ball, right? Or you have a wide open man who's in a better position and you try and do something that's kind of silly. But there's also something called under dribbling. There are players, for example, if you're a winger, one of the abilities you should have as a winger, in my eyes at least, is good dribbling ability. And if you're a winger who just gets the ball and never takes his man on, or you're a player who has the space to exploit and it would be advantageous to your team to do it, but you never exploit it, well, I think that's kind of underutilizing this skill. And so it's not just over dribbling, but it's making sure you're not under dribbling. Because dribbling is a skill that you can use to benefit your team. If you take on, let's say you're the winger and you take on the left back and you beat him and then put in a dangerous cross, that's more beneficial to your team than you just turning around and passing the ball back every single time. Now, a lot of the time you will do that. You have to pick your moments and take calculated risks. Now, if you want to learn some of the things that differentiate the elite dribblers from the average dribblers, I'd go check out this video next where I go over exactly that. What's the difference? What are the elite dribblers doing to get to that point? So I'll see you over there.